Okay, hi. Hey, Shankari. Nice to see you.
Hey, Jivana.
Thanks so much for being here. I just want to make sure, I think we're live. It always takes a moment to get the feed to Facebook.
Sure.
So, yeah, we're there. So I'm wondering if I'd asked you earlier if you could lead a centering for us. Okay, there it is, we're live.
Hey, everyone.
And then maybe we can talk about you and introduce you better after.
That sounds great.
All right.
So let's take a moment, find a comfortable seated posture. If you're outside, find your feet grounded on the earth. Maybe if you're seated, I'm going to take my feet down out of cross-legged position. Connect your toes, the soles of your feet, the 3 points of your feet, big toe, little toe, and heel to the earth. Feel firm and grounded. Notice the textures under your feet. And then place the hands wherever they'd like. Maybe you'd like to place one hand on belly, one hand on heart. And just notice the sensation, the rise and fall of the chest and the belly. As you take a moment to feel grounded, start to notice the sensations around the room. Maybe there's cooling, heat, wind, stillness, birds chirping, family chattering, dogs barking, earth moving and continuing. Take a deep inhale. Open the mouth, exhale, let it out. One more deep inhale, filling up the back of the ribs. Open the mouth, let it out. And then just bring to your third eye center or your heart center or your belly a sense of peace and gratitude for this moment, acceptance. Ashe, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jivana.
Thanks so much for being here, Shankari. So I met you quite a while ago. I don't even know when, but I remember we're both involved with integral yoga, and I think you were living at Yogaville and working there, working for the ashram, and I used to go and teach every year. So I think we met way back.
We met like through social media because, you know, okay. I like to find the people who go against the grain of yoga and to do things a little differently and don't necessarily follow the status quo and the patterns of yoga. And so it was really refreshing for me as an integral yogi living at Yogaville and trying to just make so much very like progressive and bold change to find somebody that was within the Sangha that was kind of pretty much doing the same thing, but out west. I feel like sometimes our lineage is so separated by the country, you know, it's like, it feels like things out west are just happening on such a different level than the East Coast sometimes. So I was definitely following you and then was so excited when you brought accessible yoga to Yogaville, I think like maybe a few months before I left there. So I became an accessible yogi ambassador.
That was great.
I waved that sticker proudly.
But I know you've been doing, well, can you tell us about some of the things you do? I know you're a farmer, which is something I'm excited about because my background is actually in gardening, not farming.
I was so excited to hear that.
Yeah.
I learned that about
I mean, that's how I survived. And I was like, I was trying to make a living, like teaching yoga and gardening for many years. But farming is that's different.
I feel like a big part of the journey is like full circle for me with yoga because when I first started, it was very much about the postures, very much about the movement, very much about devotion to the teachers and the lineage. And now as I've gotten more grounded and more secure in my practice and and just been able to like really hone in on the svadhyaya, the self-study and the self-inquiry, I've realized that I have a deeper connection to nature and the land. And as we like start to like peel back these layers of like racism and, you know, COVID and all these other things, it's like, you know, this larger looming issue of the environment is kind of just in the background. And it's always been a concern of mine. And, you know, just acknowledging like the water source, the soil, you know, there's so many things that we are going to have to face in the next 50 to 70 to 150 years. Anyway, so I started a farm about 3 years ago, Waterloom Farm out here in Scottsville, Virginia. And it's this beautiful, I'm like looking out over my terraced garden beds right now and my willow trees and my pond I just put in to help bring biodiversity and pollinators. And so, yeah, what we wanted to do was to make it very like regenerative permaculture model, where we focus on like building up the soil instead of like tilling it and disrupting the land. We really wanted to add to it and support the land. So everything is about building up and like regenerating, nourishing, more so than sustainable, because sustainable is just like sustaining the land, but we actually want to build it back up, regenerate it, create elements of self-care and healing and nourishment. And so like through that process of working with the land, it's actually informed how I practice in yoga, you know, this kind of mindfulness meditation approach versus like movement and asana, which still feels really good, but I'm much more apt to do a yoga nidra than to do a heavy vinyasa flow.
But you've left integral yoga now, right? Is that you're not working anymore?
Yeah, I'm working for Mind and Life Institute, which was founded by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, an activist and a scientist. So these three very polarizing different approaches to focusing on the mind and neurobiology. And it's just been so refreshing. I love the organization. The work that we're doing is really profound on the staff level. There's like 15 to 17 of us that work in the office, and it's just been really great. They're very committed to equity, diversity, and inclusion. Like that was a part of my interview process. We do trainings on a weekly basis. We really try to bring our own self-awareness to then create like human flourishing for the world, you know? So we're doing the work and we're not just like putting out these, you know, square memes and like press releases and things that like, hey, we care about Black lives. It's like, no, we've gone through like an intense ancestor ceremony of like peeling back the layers of slavery, like the day that George Floyd died, that was already scheduled. It's like all these things that really make me grateful that I work for them. And they're just doing incredible things around science and research and bringing up all these people in the field. So I'm very grateful to be there.
I mean, that's exciting. And I know, and your work, the new project you created, State of Union, yoga with Jay Miles, like that. It's exciting to me, like kind of what you were saying earlier about seeing integral yogis who then go out and like connect what I think of as a very traditional lineage with the reality of our lives. Because I feel like sometimes integral yoga, it's, you know, slightly disconnected from reality. You know what I mean? There's like a disconnect between, I think unfortunately, it doesn't have to be that way, but it feels like there's a disconnect between the way yoga is being taught as a traditional practice versus like the reality of our lives right now, this culture in this time. And I know that Swami Satchidananda was really interested in that. I mean, that's what drew me to him, was that I felt like he was making the teachings pertinent in that moment, maybe like in the 60s, especially when he was just arrived here.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like the organization has kept up with the times in that way. Like, you know, this is not 1967 anymore. And, you know, so the teachings are still, I think, very like incredible. And he was so clear and such an incredible vehicle for that, for the teaching. And I feel really like so lucky to have him as my teacher, but it just feels like the organization hasn't moved into this moment. I just wonder if you have thoughts about that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely felt somebody used the analogy of like, we need to be patient here. And like we're pushing on this slow moving train. And it just got to a point where I was like, No, we need to like smash through, like rebuild a new track. Like this is, and you work with Kelly, so it's like we're talking about disrupting, dismantling, breaking down systems, and we're even talking about like systems of this like glass ceiling of guru worship and leadership. These are issues that do not these spiritual communities aren't untouchable. The virus of racism and white supremacy will still permeate into every aspect of our culture and our lives. And I think that there's something so incredibly important about the work that we as yogis I feel have a responsibility to do, to show up in the world. It's kind of like, if not us, being able to kind of come to this place of duality and love and acknowledging the truth. If we can't do it, that all these practices, all these tools that make us so calm and so, we know ourselves, we know our body, we're not about me, we're about we, we're these higher conscious beings. It's like, if we can't do it, my God, what about like my neighbor 6 houses down out in the country that like shoots his AR-15 for fun? Like, what are we talking about here? Like this is a real moment for us as yogis. And I think that, there's some level of the shadow work that these people don't want to go into, and I think that we're not removed from that just because we show up for 5 a.m. meditation. Sometimes that work is, I read something that you had been a part of a few years ago about enlightenment being kind of like bullshit, like enlightenment was somebody that you were promoting or talking to, or a blog or something that you shared was saying like enlightenment is this kind of like white supremacist male patriarchal mindset, and there was something about that was like, oof, what's that about?
Actually, that's what I'm writing about right now, but I would say it slightly differently than that, which is that the way we've come to understand it is like, I think, through the lens of white supremacy. So I think we've come to understand samadhi and enlightenment as an individual thing, just for the person, that you turn within, you go into a cave for 10 years and then, you're enlightened, boom. And I think that's the mistake. It's a mistaken interpretation of the teaching. I'm sure the teaching is not that. We're looking at something from literally thousands of years ago. And it's just coming through our lens right now. And I feel like what I see, like my understanding of yoga and social justice, is that enlightenment is a communal experience. You cannot be enlightened as an individual
Totally
if the whole community is not enlightened. Like it goes together, hand in hand. And I guess I think that's what you're saying about, the shadow work. It feels like only talking about love and light all the time, keeping it all good vibes only, like that kind of spiritual bypassing is actually not yoga. Yeah. It's an appropriation. It's a misuse of the teachings to serve the purpose of maybe some larger, I don't know, the system, the white supremacist system, the system that we're in, where we learn to focus on the self and the ego. And it's actually in direct, contradiction to what the teachings are really about, which is to reduce ego, reduce the mind, to connect more broadly. So that's why I get frustrated about, not just with integral yoga, but, I think both of us know that there are amazing people in that organization. But I think a lot of organizations get stuck, and a lot of yoga organizations in the West especially get stuck because they're trying to do the right thing. But in the end, it's still through this very a very white lens, actually, and a kind of capitalist lens. We're trying to sell stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think a lot about the love and light, and how people think that we're always kind of challenging them, these, folks that are in this social justice movement and living in this world of really wanting to change and like peel back the veil. You know, we talk about the veil of illusionment and darkness in yoga all the time. That was like one of the things that when I started practicing yoga, I was like, I'm just trying to get through my veil of darkness. And I was super depressed, and I was like, you know, this really sad person. And then I found integral yoga, and I found yoga, and I was like, oh, I've removed the veil of dark. It's like, we talk about these things like they're just these frou-frou, and it's like, no, like this is it. We're doing it right now. We're removing this darkness that, and I also think there's something I said it in a social IG video, something really beautiful about just like resting in the darkness, you know, like staying in the darkness. Like, why are we always trying to like crack through and bring in light? That to me is a little bit kind of like, well, why is light good and black and darkness is not good? Like, just stay in it for a little bit. That's like the discomfort that we talk about sitting in. But yeah, I think that there's this misconception that we're just so like angry and we're on our mission, and we call out culture and we have this agenda. And it's like, when I trust, when I love, you know, particularly like white people, like I'll use Amber for an example, because we both know her. Like, I can be in.
By the way, Amber's there, Jay's there. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Like, I can be in space with her, and there's love and light. There's love and light. Like, I can be totally myself. There's where the love and light comes. The trust is there. So this energy of like, bring in the love and light. It's like, I'm trying to get there with you. This is how Black people are trying to get to the love and light. And we're being stopped from doing it in our way that feels safest for our culture. You know, we need trust. We need the boundaries. We need the safer spaces. We need the hard conversations. We need we need the reparations without you expecting some thank you for those reparations. Like, just, you know, let's do the work of repair. And so, yeah, that's the stuff that I don't think that a lot of yoga teachers, studios, organizations, they're just so terrified to do, to acknowledge those mistakes, when really it's actually pretty awesome when you do it.
Yeah, you know, you're reminding me of just being in a relationship. I mean, I've been married for, I don't know, over 27 years. And, you know, it's like, actually, I think it's Swami Satchidananda even said that. He's like, your marriage, your prior personal, intimate relationships are training for how to be in the world. And I think what I've learned from my marriage is that I have to like stop defending myself all the time. Like that's, you know, and so if someone, like when my husband says that I've hurt him, I have to just trust that was experience, instead of like denying that and going into my defensive mode about how he was wrong and I'm right. And I feel like that's kind of how we are in the world too. Like, if someone says they're suffering, then they're suffering. And I need to be open to hearing that. And I think that's a spiritual practice, to be humble. Even if you don't think you've done anything wrong, so what? Just listen, just like be quiet and just acknowledge, you know what, that person is suffering.
Yeah.
We need to listen and let them have that space.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, it's interesting that you brought up marriage too, because I'm divorced and I was in a really unhappy marriage. And a part of what I would do to that partner was I would put expectations on him, and I would like build these stories. I would create these narratives, these dialogues around what was happening in every single moment. And it just really just continued to create these just like deep fissures and divides. And now I'm with this person who like, we really do the work of like, I do exactly what you said. Like, you're hurting, like, let's talk about that. Like, you show up and you're just totally like, bleh, and you're not, and I don't put expectations on him. I don't write stories anymore. And so that relationship started towards like, I think my second year of being at Yogaville. So it's interesting that that again, all these things, like when you're a happier person, when you know yourself, when you're in a really positive relationship with somebody that you're sharing space for, it just, all these things inform how you show up in the world. And so sometimes I just, you know, without assuming what people are going through, I just think that there's a lot of stuff people need to work out in themselves to get to this place where we can even talk about race, you know?
Yeah. So I know that you just had the second episode of the the state of yoga, the state of union yoga,
Mm-hmm.
and you already got some feedback. Like there's already people, I mean, which is good, I think, right? You're like,
Yeah.
you know, you're bringing up that dark side. You're like exposing the shadow side. It sounds
We
like.
made it, Mama. We made it. We got our first angry email. Got our first hater.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because when you asked me to do this episode, you were like, what's the one thing you want to talk about? And I think I said, like, I want to talk about tone policing and the fact that, like, everybody wants us to just be so nice. You know, we had just assigned love and rage. And I think that was always another thing that I was always kind of up against with dealing with being in leadership at Yogaville and just in general, like being a Black woman, you're already seen as this kind of aggressive, angry. Yeah. I share this story about my father when I was 8 years old, walking on the street with him. And I asked him, why he wasn't in relationship with Black women. And he said, because they're just angry. They're always angry. They have this, and he named a couple other things, but we ain't going to go all there today. But so these things, they imprint. And so here I am, like always walking lightly as an adult, or if I feel that anger coming out, that passion, that fire that we just, and as a culture, we're just kind of like these fiery people, you always have this perception that that's what people think of you, and so I knew that that's what we were doing. When you bring a whole slew of Black people to the cookout, which is what we do with State of Union Yoga, and with the people that we love and trust, our white allies and accomplices and comrades to come and join us to give their perspective, there's going to be some fire, that's what happens at a cookout. So we knew that was going to do some upending, and some white fragility was going to come out. What's funny is that is exactly what Diane was facing before she came on the episode. She'd voiced, like, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, the white fragility is out of control, and she just had to unplug. She shows up for the episode, says that, and I think the line she used was, white people need to deal with their shit. And lo and behold, the next day, we get a note that says, I think using the term white people need to deal with their shit is problematic and hurtful. And I think that we need to use yogic terms, like asking us to sit in the discomfort. Well, first of all, sit in the discomfort. I see you. All these like catchphrases are to me just so like, they're all watered down now, like, I don't need you to keep texting me that you see me. That's great. Like, do you see me? I don't really feel that way. But anyway, it's just these. Yeah, Diane said what she said, and we're not taking it back. This is the problem, is that people want us to kind of tiptoe around emotions and say it nicer and sweeter. And it's like, well, we've said it nice. I said it nice for years at different places that I've worked. What do you, and I'm sure Jay's thinking of the same video that I sent him around George Floyd's death about Tupac Shakur coming in the room blasting, like, and he says, like, what do you want us to do? Ask, like, how many more times do we have to say it, Right. So it's very interesting how people make their story and they project it, they have those expectations of us. And that's not, we can't continue to show up like that anymore. It's not healthy. It's not physiologically healthy for us. I've compartmentalized myself into a box and a perfect mold for far too long. And I've worked really hard to get to a place where I feel confident and secure in myself as a woman, as a Black woman, as a wife, as a farmer, as a yogi, as a friend, as a sister, as a teacher. And I can't lessen myself anymore. That's not conducive with my happiness. So this is me expressing my happiness.
Yeah.
Come along with us if you want. It's
So I mean, it sounds like the issue is, it's like people are being confronted with their stuff, like either the fact that they may have harmed someone, like they feel, I don't know what, guilty or embarrassed, shamed, or something, and they can't handle it. They can't handle sitting with that. And then it seems like what I see a lot, at least on social media, is like white people either taking a position like, well, then you have like that. It's someone else's responsibility. Like, tell me what to do. Like, I see that a lot. Like, even white people who I think are well-meaning are still like, well, tell me what to do. But I think really all you do is you deal with yourself. Like, you have to deal with yourself and be in those bad feelings and accept that's just part of what it means to be white. And I always say, like, white people need to dismantle white supremacy. It's up to us.
Right. And I think Dr. Parker said that too. This is not our problem to fix. We can share our story. That's the beautiful thing about this dialogue and that's what's so profound. I said, oh God, if nothing else, Dr. Gail Parker gave me a compliment. Like, that is the moment, when I've done programs for her and she just comes over and looks at a blanket and says, ooh, that's a good fold. Like, that to me, that will sustain me for a good 2 weeks. Like, you don't understand. So for her to just at the end of that episode say, this felt good. This felt nourishing. I feel at home. Right. That's the juicy good stuff that we're trying to create, at your yoga studio, at Yogaville, at your, whatever these spaces that you're holding that are supposed to be for everyone, for all, same thing, accessible yoga. We're all supposed to be welcome in our bodies, in our vessels as we show up. There's something really profound about letting people just say it how they want to say it, and again, to hear the stories, that's really also too, I think, a little bit of part of the work that like white people just kind of want to gloss over. They don't want to like hear all the icky stuff about themselves. And it's like, I would much rather not hear about that either. Guess what? This is a body of privilege. I get that this is some good, good C hair. And I get that this skin is a little bit more, we're all using Marty Nico's word, palatable. Like, I've got some privileged stuff too. Come on. Like, so we all have to kind of address some things within ourselves that make us feel icky, but, it's important to feel it, to embody it, to like, let people express, because something starts to shift when you feel people's emotions and heart. And you kind of like embody their story versus just like checking a box. I did the one DEI training this month and we hired a Black person and we put somebody who's a Latino on our board. It's like these check boxes. It's like so strategic and kind of scary. Yeah, kind of scary. Yeah.
I think going back to that, we talked about what it means to be enlightened, and I would just say, to me, that's what the practice is for. Like, yoga is for not just sitting with discomfort or becoming resilient, but actually going into the painful stuff.
Going into the what stuff?
Painful stuff. It's an echo now. I don't know why it's echoing. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Going into the painful stuff, like my journey really was around AIDS and losing my friends to, who were sick and dying when I was in my 20s. And I think that was to me what spirituality was like facing death. And I think this is the same thing, like facing our fears, facing the thing that we're afraid of, or that we feel like the mistakes we've made. That's actually the practice. That's tapas. So like, it's the Yoga Sutras, the first part of how to practice yoga is tapas, right? Like purification. And that's what this is, like, just sit, like you said, listen to the stories, the icky stories, like that. That's a beautiful teaching that you're sharing. That is true not only around racism, but in any way that anyone's been harmed. And and even for ourselves, like our own personal healing depends on our ability to sit with our own discomfort, our fear, the fear of our own mistakes and fear of our own death, honestly. So I think that's what we go back to, right? That basic fear that it's like a dark cloud hovering over us that we're ignoring.
Our own immortality. And, I think also too, and I mean, Ishvara Pranidhana, it's like, that's the surrender piece that people are, to me, it's like, you either just kind of like show up and let Diane say, white people need to deal with their shit, and then just sit with that and surrender to those words, or you immediately let the ego come up, you know? And that to me, when you're it's always, of course, it's totally okay to react, by the way. Like I've been, you know, it's not even been like 2 or 3 years ago where I had a Black fellow yogi come to me and say something like the behavior I exhibited was problematic and racist. And I was like, immediately my first reaction was to be like, no, I'm not racist. And I went and I called my girlfriend, Janaki, who's another integral yogi. And she picked up the phone and she just was like, well, are you? Well, are you? And I had to be like, what? No, what am I? Oh, what I did was really messed up. Like that was like, okay, so let's just own that. Like, did I sit and like, now I have to like let all Black people suffer forever because of how that one person made me feel? Or did I sit with it for like a day, like write out some like privileged stuff that I needed to address within myself? And then go back to the table and be like, let's talk about that, girl. That was like a moment when I did not show up for you like a sister. Yeah. And I let my privilege just blow up. Like, you know, come on, can we get back on track? Yeah, let's do it. Like, that's the kind of stuff that white people just need to just calm down, take a breath, sit with it for a minute. It's okay. You know, we know you've made some mistakes. We've all made some mistakes. We're all going to be okay. You know, and it's not necessarily going to get fixed in our lifetime. That's the other thing, is like people have this like rush to fix something that we're talking about generations of healing that need to occur here. And while we're healing from racism, we're also addressing the issues around our environment, you know, the world, the capitalism issues. Like there's so many layers of inequities and food sovereignty and so many things that people, I think, just need to kind of just like take a step back, like put down the remote for a minute, like don't turn off Bravo TV for just a night, like just chill, take a breath, go on a walk, get your hands in the dirt, and just start to like connect back with Gaia, because there's something happening here. She's trying to tell us something through this whole process. And, you know, the signs are here, you know, and we either are going to listen. You know, I love how Lama Rod Owens put it with Carrie Kelly's interview the other day. He said two rows here: extinction, liberation. What side are you going to be on? Because here's what we're facing: real extinction as a human race. Humanity is facing extinction on multiple levels. You know.
Yeah, he's brilliant, and so is Diane, by the way. Like, I just want to go back to like dealing with your own shit. In a way, I think she's like summarizing the yoga teachings there, to be honest. Like, I really think that sentence is like what all of the yoga, like the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, you had to like get it into like 5 words, or to deal with your own shit. Like, is that 5 words? I mean, she basically summarized it all. Like, she's brilliant. And Lama Rod too. Like, I missed that part of his talk actually, but I have his book. And the way he's talking about embracing the anger, you know, it's like, I think it's a similar teaching.
Yeah.
That like we started with talking about wanting to avoid all that stuff. We want to just live in the light, blah, blah, blah. But the way there, actually, and Jay Ma said it, you have to go through the darkness to get to the light. He said something like that in the comments here.
Yeah.
Like, that's the way. That's the way forward.
Right.
And I think, and like you said, we're facing our extinction, but what is stopping us? You know, I think it's like there's a fear there, shame, guilt. Something is actually stopping us from getting anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, I think it's just, there is a lot of shame around racism. There's a lot of shame. I think people are just, at the end of the day, there's a lot of selfishness. Yeah. You know, we're so consumed with, you know, we can tell that whole Gurudev story of the illness and the wellness and the board at the Omni, and which is kind of funny because that's where I work now, in that hotel that he did the same presentation. Anyway, it's just, and Lama Rod Owens talked about it with Carrie Kelly, like the Sangha. like there's the community, the tribes, when we as a people, we were first, as Africans descending in the world, and Neanderthals still living in Europe, the earliest forms of human nature evolved in Africa. We formed these tribes, and within those tribes, we started to form cultures and our own language and art. And, our whole goal was to, sustain each other, hunt for food, and worship the gods and the deities and the earth. And it's just, we've gotten so distracted. There's so many layers of distraction right now. And I mean, you could do a whole neurobiology and cognitive, dissertation and study on just the effects of all these different ways we're consuming media right now, and just ingesting these videos of racial violence and the Portland protests. I find myself just picking up my phone at 1 a.m. just let me check and see what's happening in Portland. It's there's so much coming at us. And at the end of the day, I think it's just that sense of it just feels so foreign to people. And even now, as we're isolated, it's going to become more. Yeah. It has the potential to become more. But I think that through these platforms like Zoom and through these webinars, we are actually coming more into community globally than maybe we have for the first time in a long time. So, yeah, I think I really do think it's just selfishness, the inability to see the other. And what do they need? What do Black people, what do they need? What do people of color need? What do, people with accessible needs need? They, not, what I think they need. Let them speak for themselves,
Yeah, there's a portion in the Gita. I might need to go grab it. It's over there, but
go for it. I actually have, you might know where it's at. I have a Gita here. Actually. I've been studying to get ready for our episode next month.
It might take me a minute to find it. It might take me a second to find it, but there's a part where Krishna is talking about what happens, basically how to be enlightened. And what's really interesting about it, I think it is actually, I've quoted it in my book. It just reminds me of what you're saying. Oh, here, it's chapter 6, sloka 29 through 32. Is it okay if I'll just read it? Is that all right?
Yeah, go ahead.
As your mind becomes harmonized through yoga practices, you begin to see the Atman in all beings and all beings in yourself. You see the same self everywhere and in everything. Those who see me wherever they look and recognize everything as my manifestation never again feel separate from me, nor I from them. Whoever becomes established in the all-pervading oneness and worships me abiding in all beings, however he may be living, that yogi lives in me. The yogi who perceives the essential oneness everywhere naturally feels the pleasure or pain of others as his or her own. And I feel like that last part is the key. I might be on my camera, I don't know why. Anyway, I love that last part. This idea, I feel like most people go just to the first part. We talk about, wanting to see ourselves in others.
Right.
I don't know why my camera's so blurry. It's because I walked away.
There you go. Now you're back in focus.
I have to get back here. But I love this part about that when you perceive the essential oneness everywhere, then you naturally feel the pleasure or pain of others as your own. I mean, that's powerful. That's something else.
Yeah, I mean, that's the embodiment piece, I mean, that's really, I use the example right now because so many, I mean, it's just it's what brought us to the point of forming State of Union Yoga Address was the fact that it was this bombardment. There's no other word for it. It might have been well-intended, but it was this bombardment from white people to say they see us and are you okay? I'm not racist. I don't believe, what George Floyd did. And, Gail Parker put it so wonderfully in episode 2 about did can white people actually see themselves in I forgot
in George Floyd? Yeah,
not in George Floyd, but the cop.
In the cop, right?
They see their ancestors in him, because every Black person looked at George Floyd and saw themselves in George Floyd. Right. We could relate with that, but like there's some kind of disassociation, you know, from that ability to see themselves in these very like white ingrained behaviors of power. You know, that's what we're really talking about at the end of the day. And so there is a little bit of like, for the first time for a lot of white people, like they might not have, we'll move past the cop, Chavis, I think is his name, and get into like, they saw that pain. They watched a man die. You know, we've seen many Black people die on TV, but, you know, for something, you know, for him to cry out, to see him take his last breath, to see all these people trying to stop it, I think something just hit, and we're already this heightened sense of inwardness and reflection through COVID. That's what I mean by like, the world is, you know, Mother Nature is setting us up to really, you know, get something from this moment, and to transform. We talk about transformative behavior. And I think that for the first time, white people started to feel our pain. And I hope that continues, not to like say that they like need to like feel pain, but like feel it. Like it hurts every time somebody says something ignorant to me. It hurts my stomach. It hurts my heart. It makes me feel like I can't, like I've like a loss of breath. It's like a punch to the stomach every time. It happens to all of us in different ways. But unfortunately, it does happen to Black and brown individuals and marginalized communities, LGBTQ, people with accessible needs. Like those people that are seen as other, it happens to us a little bit more than I think it does to people that are in places of power.
Totally. I mean, I think that's exactly it. You know, and it can be denial, it can be fear, it could be guilt, whatever it is that's keeping people away. But it's like, I think the way past is through, not around. So like, I think that's kind of the theme of what we're getting at is like, in order to get to that place of compassion, you just can't deny the feelings. You can't look away. You can't deny someone's experience. If someone's upset with you for something you've done, you just need to listen, take it in. You need to I think white people need to watch those videos actually. And just like, this is a white man doing this in your name. I think that's what she was trying to say, is like, this could be my brother. That's what Jay wrote in here too. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's painful and it hurts and it's hard to do, but I think that's how you heal. It's not through denial that you heal something.
And guess what? You can have all those feelings. You can have all of that, like acknowledgement that you've caused pain, reflection that like, at a certain point in your life, you were probably racist, that you were, you know, you mistreated people, it's going to be years before it's fixed. You know, you got to stay in this work for a long amount of time. And if you get into this place of like, and like this, it's like, guess what? All of that messy shit. And I still love you. I still show like that's really what I think you and I are getting at when we talk about like Yogaville and integral yoga, like all that yuckiness and totally like, anti-ethical behavior of what we believe in, but we still love you and we're still showing up to the table and we're still trying to like get to the place of, love all, serve all, compassion in action, do good, be good, all those little tag words we throw, good vibes only, love and light, all the sellable, marketable yoga words, and it's like all of that stuff. And we're here. We're not running away. We can't run away. Like if we run away, like we came to yoga because it's a practice that we believe in and it's healing. Culturally, it works for our people. There's elements of it that have evolved through our culture. And so it's a good fit for most of us. And we've, changed it the way we show up on the mat, but so we're here. And it's okay to, take a step back, recharge, breathe, take a few days off of social media, take a break from white shaming your other friends, like just, get in relationship with Black people. Like pull out your phone and like, how many Black friends do you really have? Really Black friends? Like the people who are my friends did not call me like that.
Yeah.
They didn't have to call me checking in a way that was like, because they knew like this happened, I better not call Shankari.
Right.
Like, I just give her some space.
Right.
She's with her people now.
Right. Like you don't need to make it worse by making it about you. You know what I mean? Like me. Like I don't have to like insert my feelings and insert them into the relationship I have with you as a Black person, and have you deal with my shit when you're trying to deal with yours. So that's, like I said, like Diane taught us all, deal with your own shit. That's what yoga is all about. So it's like, that's where you go on your mat. You get on your mat, and that's what you're doing. You're actually exploring your body, exploring your heart and your emotions and your mind. And that's where the healing comes in. And I think what happens is people start to find some peace there. People that are suffering in their lives, and really, there's everyone's in pain. I get that, but I think people get defensive of that space, and they want to think of yoga as this like safe space instead of a brave space. So their yoga mat becomes a safe space for them, and they're unwilling to like let any of the pain of the world in there, and they're trying to see it as like a, like it's a little like bubble, a pink bubble. Something, but really it's not. It's like preparing you to be a warrior. You know what I mean? Like that, your practice is getting you ready to fight so that you can like face your own demons and those around you.
Yeah.
What is it for? Like that's what yoga is for. It's like make you a peaceful warrior, like Arjuna. That's what he was being taught to do.
Yeah, totally. And it's that story is so pivotal right now, him on the battlefield facing his family. It's like, that's what we're asking white people to do. Is like, I got some uncles right now that I'm not so happy at, and my mom is not so happy at, we all have the family that we need to kind of, to call out. But I think, I love that you said brave space, because that also has been, I've been like, when I, for a long time, I was like, we need to create safe spaces. And it's like, what's safe for me is not necessarily safe for somebody else. And so these kind of brave spaces or safer spaces. But I love how our director of inclusion at Mind and Life, our facilitator, our most recent facilitator, she just said, it's really what we're asking is to invite the community into courageous conversations with us. Really courageous, compassionate conversations. And I use this example because somebody who's white said to me, like, I really only want to deal with like, compassionate action, and kind of like what we started with this whole like tone policing, and like it needs to sound nice and yogic for me to engage. And I said, what's to say that like just being a Black person and showing up for a Zoom call a day after a Black man was murdered on TV, to show up for a Zoom call and not like turn their video camera off in a room full of white people, like that's compassionate. For them to give themselves like that, their energy like that, like we have to acknowledge that people are are exhibiting compassionate behavior in a wide range of ways. It's not like giving a donated check or like doing, it's like, I think people have these very like performative ways of like, you have to exhibit these behaviors. It's like, no, just like existing. Form of compassion in this moment, showing up to a work meeting in an all-white organization is a of compassion and love and bravery,
Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you. I want to ask you, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I want to ask you about the rest of the conversations. And if you have anything you want to share about that. I know I'm on the next one. I'm so excited.
You're on the next one, which is August 11th. And it's stateofunionyoga.com. And if Jay's still on, maybe he's doing some marketing things. That's what.
I hope so.
Yeah.
No,
And so, yeah, stateofunionyoga.com. You can check it out. There's links to purchase episode 3, which is going to feature Jivana and Amina Naru, Michelle Cassandra Johnson, who wrote Skill in Action, and Keisha Battles, who's like Sutra goddess extraordinaire. And we're going to be talking about Jnana yoga, Jnana yoga philosophy, and getting into a lot of like just the fact, like, it's very interesting that Michelle Cassandra Johnson's book sold out, you know, a week after George Floyd died, and her program sold out. You know, it's like this massive amount of like taking in media, philosophy, teachings. And we're going to just talk about that. We're going to get in and just unpack a little bit about that and what your work is as an ally, and also as a Black person as we create these dialogues to support you. These conversations are centered around Black, Indigenous people of color first and foremost. So yeah, this is episode 3. We've got Maya Brewer coming up, Jana Long, Susanna Barkataki, David Lipsius is joining us. We've trying to think of Mazen Jamal. Tons of great people are coming up in the next 3 episodes. And we're doing a community town hall, which will be more interactive with Reggie Hubbard, Carrie Kelly, and Onika Mays, which I'm super excited about, because at the end of the day, we've got 6 months when we started this to the election, 6 branches of yoga, and we've got, you know, some time to really talk about how we can take some of these yoga practices, put them into action, start to create community care and policy changings within our immediate tribes and circles of people in our own communities, so that we can ultimately make change in our political system.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's really exciting. And it's on a sliding scale. You can pay up $19 to $289, depending on your package. And we are all about supporting nonprofits. So we just gave out $1,500 to our first.
I know, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for putting that together. Thanks to you and Jay. I know that you've been working on that together, right?
Yes.
It's awesome. And yeah, thanks for being here today. I don't know if there's anything else you want to share. It seems like we really covered a lot.
We did. We got messy, Jivana. That was fun. I love it. It's always so great to be around you, and you're such an inspiration. And I'm super excited about what Accessible Yoga is doing and the direction it's heading, and with Kelly's offering. So please sign up for my sister Kelly's. Please, it's going to be incredible, and all the accessible yoga offerings.
Yeah, she's also mentioning racism, or what are they? Racism and equity in yoga, disruption as a practice, which is awesome. All right, well, thank you so much for being here with me today and for everything you're doing too. All right, so take care.
Appreciate it. Love y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.